Coach, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys tonight. As always, as football coaches, we're always here to help each other and to grow in the profession. And I've got a lot of great ideas and through my coaching career, and so I'm going to share a couple things that we do at Frederick Douglass High School. Then we'll move forward. So my name is Coach Nathan McPeek. I'm the head football coach at Frederick Douglass High School in Lexington, Kentucky. This is only our fourth year in our high school program. We're a newer high school in the suburbs outside of Lexington. We've been really successful with 2 district championships, 2 region championships. We were in the state championship last year, and we made the state semifinals this year during the COVID year. We've had a multitude of Division I athletes so far in our first 4 years, and I've been lucky enough to coach several that have played the offensive line position, which I'm going to talk about today, which is mainly run block progression. My Twitter is at Coach Nate McPeek. Reach out, DM me, whatever you would need. My cell phone is listed here as well for anything if you guys need to text or call me. And then that is my school email. So if there's anything that you would need from me or want to contact me or would like to try to get together when all this COVID stuff's over with, love to talk football. I'm a football junkie, come from a football family. So if you ever need to reach out, feel free to do that. So today I'm going to talk a lot about offensive line play. And some of this stuff you may sound very familiar or may recognize some of the verbiage from O-line performance, which was started by Charles Bentley. I like a lot of his stuff. I use a lot of his stuff. I use a lot of his product. So again, I want to give credit where credit's due with that, with a lot of these things. But I'll talk a little bit about kind of what we do in our program and a little bit of what we do in the off season. As far as O-line play and run block progression. I've touched on topics as a head coach from O-line play to anything offensively, defensively, to practice organization. So any of those things that you would want to talk about, reach out. But today I'm going to talk a lot about O-line play. I'm going to talk about the O-line progression. So I want to start with what is called the kinetic chain. And with the kinetic chain as an offensive lineman, it's one I've seen a lot in articles. I know O-line performance uses this, and it makes a lot of sense. And basically what that is connected from the ground up. And that means that the human body is connected from muscles, joints, and tendons. And a lot of that has to do with good O-line play. It's really starts with your stance and starts at all positions, as we know. But the kinetic chain is important in developing good offensive linemen. So a lot of the drills and a lot of the things that we should be doing as coaches, especially O-line coaches, is developing and understanding that kinetic chain and telling our players what that actually represents. So when I talk about the kinetic chain, this is what I'm talking about, okay? And it starts down here at the bottom with ankle mobility. All right. So every kid's going to be made a little bit different. Every kid's got a little bit different flexibility, whether a kid's 5'9" or 6'6". That mobility of the ankle, it starts there with your kinetic chain. As we move up, we're talking about knee stability, hip mobility. That's all important in everything we do in the weight room, as all football coaches know. It's important to have good spine angles. To be a really good offensive lineman, whether I'm, 6'4", 300, or if I'm 5'9", 180. All right. Then obviously the spine with mobility, and then the neck is really important for that stability of developing in the block and keeping you safe. If any of these are not connected as an offensive lineman, that's when you get into breakdowns during the game and you don't become a good developed player. So everything that we develop at Douglass and everything that we talk about as offensive linemen is from the ground up mentality. So everything that we do is a lot of first 2 steps to contact, first step to contact. We're not necessarily collisioning every day in our indie periods. We're focused a lot on developing this kinetic chain. And what I tell our players a lot is we're trying to get your first 2 steps and your feet to be successful within that play. All right. So when we're talking about the kinetic chain as an offensive lineman, we're working on the ground up mentality. All right. To get my body in position to make plays. We talk about making plays at the running back, quarterback, and receiver position, tight end position with the ball. All right. With offensive linemen, we're making the plays with the blocks. It's no different. You just don't have the ball in your hand. And as we know, it's a selfless position. So as we move forward in this presentation and as I discuss it, I want you to keep this kinetic chain into detail. So I want to talk about that with that ankle mobility and how it works itself up to the chain, and to the knee. And it obviously gets to the hip and so on and so forth. Offensive line play is always developed in what you need in coaching cues from the ground up. All right. So whether I have a grass practice field, a turf practice field, whatever, it's really from the ground up all the way through your feet and your toes and where that weight in your ball of your foot is, all the way up to where your knee is stable, your hips are closed. You got good recognition and mobility and stability in your back and your neck where I can deliver that blow, whether it's run or pass. Okay. So ankle mobility is a key component that good O-line coaches look at and making it corrected. So for me, I spend a lot of time in my indie period. I look at their feet the whole time. I don't really look at the strike and how physical they're going at the bag. I look at their feet, especially the first 5 minutes of my indie period, because if you don't start out right there, it doesn't matter. So like, for example, a common mistake a lot of high school linemen make is too much weight on their toes. They lean. Okay. They're waist benders. And I have that problem just like a lot of coaches do. All right. There's waist benders that play in the NFL. All right. So how are you correcting that? All right. Well, that obviously starts with the ground up mentality of starting with your feet in the proper spot, whether I'm in run block progression or pass pro progression. Okay. So what I want to talk about is, he plays too high or he has poor pad level or whatever. I don't really say that a lot anymore. I talk about the ground up mentality and where our body kinetic chain is. Because if your kinetic chain is where it needs to be, you're not going to play too high. Because playing too high for a 6'6" guy isn't playing too high for maybe a 5'9" kid. It's all about leverage and it's all about your mobility of that kinetic chain moving forward. So as an offensive lineman, we talk about the 5 traits to athleticism, and everybody's made different. I've been blessed to have some D1 athletes at Douglass at the offensive line position. I've also coached at places where I don't have any guys that can go NAIA, and these don't change. Okay. So a lot of these can be developed in your off-season programs and how much you can work with your guys through the off-season. It's not just the season. So there are 5 traits to offensive line athleticism: strength, power, functional mobility. That goes back to that kinetic chain piece. How efficient are they in their movements? That's also a good coaching cue that you need to be doing, in my opinion, as a good offensive line coach. Is their movement efficient? All right. And then obviously, what's your purpose? What is your purpose for this block, or what is your purpose for what you need to do for this play once it's called? So those are 5 traits to offensive line athleticism, and a lot of those can be developed. I'm not saying they have to be Division I players either. Like I said, I've coached a different group of kids everywhere I've been. I think another thing that we need to talk about as offensive linemen and really run block progression overall is appreciate the craftsmanship of the position. I think as a coach, you need to get your kids to buy into this is a portrait. This is a canvas of an artist. And you need to appreciate the position. So many kids don't want to play offensive line. They don't appreciate the position because you don't have the ball in your hand. There's some coaches that go into football coaching that don't want to coach O-line because it doesn't necessarily involve the ball all the time. Well, this is the only thing I've really ever known leading up to being a head coach is coaching offensive line, which I still coach even as the head coach. All right, because offensive line play is that important. So appreciate the craftsmanship. To me, obviously the most overlooked component of O-line play is stance. You start bad, you end bad. If your kinetic chain starts bad, you end bad. All right, so for my players, when they don't grade out on a play very well, it goes back to this right here. They started bad. Their kinetic chain wasn't where it needed to be in their stance. So I think as coaches, we have to have those cues, and we have to work on those first 2 steps to contact in our practice indie periods a lot in run block progression. I think that's important. Another thing that I believe in is O-line is a dictatorship. It's not a democracy. All right. You're going to dictate your angle of dominance. All right. And whatever that play call is. So for us, once I call a play, and really for anybody that plays O-line, once you get a play called, boom, you know what angle I'm working, and it's going to be a dictatorship. Because remember, as an offensive lineman, we're a reactionary position. We know the snap count and where the ball's going. Those are the 2 advantages. One bad step can eliminate those 2 advantages. So we have to be a good reactionary spots, reactionary players, and react to movements of defenses, which are much greater in today's game than they ever have been, with slant angle, blitzing, zone drops, all of those things that dictate different defensive looks. I think as a coach and as an offensive line coach, I think it's important that we give them movements and give them knowledge. We're coaching a lot of Y generation kids. All right. Why do I got to do this, coach? Why do I got to do that? I'm 38 years old, been coaching. This will be my 18th year coming up. Got started at a very young age. I was a head football coach at 25. Kids today are vastly different than what I coached 17 years ago, as all of us know. It's a Y generation. When my head coach in high school asked me to do 50 push-ups, I didn't ask why. I just hit the ground and did them. A lot of these kids, they're going to want to know why you're doing certain things. So I think if you give them knowledge, you give them power over the assignment and what they're doing. So what I like to do is when I put them in their rows of doing indie work or whatever we're doing in offensive line play, I'll let them coach. All right. So I'll go to a kid and say, all right, I want you to coach them through this real quick. What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? And they may not know every single detail of what I know as the coach, but I'm trying to empower them to give them knowledge of what they need to get done to be successful on those plays that we're working in that period. Never lead a player astray from feeding them information they cannot explain. Don't give them the how, but also give them the why. As a former player myself, and as anyone in the student type of relationship with a teacher can appreciate, knowing the why behind the instruction is being given can give them a lot of power and a lot of knowledge. And I think it makes them play better in games when they understand and have confidence of what their movement skills are. So I wanted to make sure I cover that. So in your stance, for me, it's about closed hips. Now, that might mean my foot can be turned out slightly, but my hips are going to be closed. A good offensive lineman must operate in a good vital stance where the weight of the lineman is evenly distributed amongst balance of the hip. I tell my guys all the time, if it's 4th and a foot, I'm okay with, a little bit more weight on your hand. Other than that, we need to be balanced. And I use a 2 and a 3-point stance. Most of my guards are in 3s, tackles are in 2s. But we're in a good balanced stance to be able to pass pro and run pro. Too much weight will get fast power quick step, and you'll charge off the line. You'll get all weight forward. You'll lean. And then, again, you're out of sorts. You're not in a good, proper kinetic chain to make the play or the block that you need to make for that particular play. Splits in alignment, I'm not necessarily talk about that because that's kind of different for every group of every coach that would run a different system, whether that's a foot split, foot to foot, 3 foot, whatever. For us, we're a foot from the center at guard on the hip to give us better angles, and the tackles are at 3 feet. Okay, that's just for us at Douglass of what we do. All right, so our run block progression. Okay, this is kind of the nuts and bolts of what I want to get into tonight. Is in the run block progression, we're going to focus on really the feet, the drive, and the finish, okay, of what that is. So we're going to fire off the line in a good stance, but it also, kids, and I think as coaches, we need to understand that firing off the line is a science. The first part is what I call the power step, or what I call the drive catch phase. Okay, and I know Coach LaCharles Bentley uses that a lot with O-line performance, and I really like it. When I was playing, it was called a 6-inch punch step, or we're going toe to heel alignment in our punch steps. It's very similar to what we call the drive catch phase. I'm going to drive through the turf, because remember, that first part of the kinetic chain is the ankles. I'm going to start there, and a lot of my drills are going to be based upon that first and second step to contact. So that's where we're going to start in our run block progression. The power step is the offensive lineman's what I call free step, and then the step advantage that we have is because the snap count. So whether I'm going on a right foot lead or a left foot lead, or I'm trying to double team, or I'm zone blocking, whatever step I'm stepping with first at whatever angle I need to is going to be based upon the play call that coach makes, okay? And you have to make sure that you understand the basic science of those drive catch phases, or that power step that I'm trying to make in that 6-inch punch step, depending on the kid. If I wear a 16 shoe like me, my drive catch phase is going to be a little different than a kid that might wear a size 11 shoe that maybe is 180 pounds. So it's all relative on the kid. And that's why I like these coaching cues of the run block progression, all right, which is the approach. The first is going to be the approach. 70% of my practices that I have with individual are based upon the approach. All right, because the approach is the most important piece, whether you're successful or not, in my opinion. So a lot of my indie work that I'm going to show you here in a minute is going to be based upon that run block progression of the approach period. The second phase is what we call the quick step, or that drive catch phase. So we're going to work on the approach, and then we're going to really work on the power, okay, and the drive phase. Okay, so we're working on the approach and then the drive phase. All right, which is when that second step's going to get down. I'm going to kind of catch my body. All right, I'm going to turn my thumb slightly turned out to where I'm going to punch with the top of my palms. Coach Maribal at the University of Oregon and I are pretty good friends, and I really like what he does, where we're going to punch up through a defender instead of punching out, because your elbows get away from your body. All right, so for me, I'm going to try to punch up and try to take their chest up through their neck. All right. And that's where I'm going to try to work on my bag drills. On that second step, I should shoot my hands where my elbows are going to be tight, and I'm going to drive up through. Okay. So that second step is what I call, all right, the feet, or that power drive phase, which is the second phase of run block progression. So again, the approach, I'm going to spend a lot of time on, which I'm going to show you a couple of drills that we do. Then we're going to work that actual drive phase, and then we're going to work what I call the finish phase. So the third part is what I call the run block progression, is going to be that finish part. So the third part is the hand contact to the chest of the defender, and we're going to work these three parts to firing off the ball. And it must be repeated over and over and over again, to where it's second nature for the mind to really drive those hands through. And we're going to work a lot of that in our run block progression phase, which I'll show you here in a little bit about kind of what we do drill wise, especially in the off season, to try to get our kids to understand what that looks like. So some drills that we're going to do, all right, is obviously our stance to start. So we're going to have a drive foot. We're going to have a catch foot, whether that's my right foot or my left foot. Our kids in our program know this answer, but 1 inch of leverage is 10 pounds of body weight. So that's why a guy that weighs 200 pounds can block a guy that's maybe 290 or 300 pounds, because they play with great kinetic chain and they play with great leverage. So the run block progression, all right, is what I call the approach, the fit, and the finish. Okay. So in practice, we're going to work the approach most of the indie time. Okay. So for me, if I got 20 minutes of individual, I'm going to spend 12 to 14 minutes on the approach. And then we're going to get to the fit, and then we're going to get to the finish. Okay. The finish is a lot about heart and what that kid wants to get done. Do you want a da-da-da Sports Center moment? Finish the block. So that's what we talk about all the time on film. Do you want one of those ESPN moments? Do you want to have those finished pancake blocks to earn a better grade on your game grade? All right. If you're satisfied with being average, don't finish. Okay. So we want to try to finish the block, but the approach and the fit is what I'm going to spend most of my indie time on in the run block progression. And I'll show you some drills that we do. All right, so this is from a couple of years ago. This young man right here, you may think to yourself, yeah, he's a good-looking dude, and he is. He's currently at Clemson University, Walker Parks. Got to coach him for 2 years at Douglass. He played a lot against Notre Dame in the ACC championship on Saturday. Really excited for him to be part of the college football playoff. He's getting to play a little bit as a true freshman, so I'm really happy for him. All right, and what he's doing. But he went to work. He never missed any of our sessions. He always was lifting weights. He's a great kid and a great leader. And it's no shocker to me how successful he's going to be. But I'll use a med ball. Obviously, we're never going to have that in the game. But this is some, O-line performance stuff that they do, and I really like it as well, is we're going to put a lot of weight on the inside ball of our knee, on our foot. All right, where our knee is going to be on this med ball. So like right here, Walker's knee is on the right. All my weight should be right here on the inside foot, all right, of that left foot. So as I'm driving, I want to make sure that my hips are closed. All right, so I want to try to keep my hips closed. All right, I'd like to see, this is Lonnie, a senior I had a couple of years ago. I'd like to see his foot out just a little bit more and get my hips a little bit more closed, where they're more like Walker's. All right. So, but all we're going to do is really work on the drive catch phase with our right and left foot. So we're really going to work on driving the inside ball of the foot and catching with my right foot. All right. And this is part of the run block progression of the approach. So as I run it, we're just going to get real quick shots with a good bent knee. All right, where I can work on driving that shoe off the inside ball of the foot and catch with my right foot. All right, and right here, we're just working like a north direction. All right, I know Coach Bentley and O-line performance talks about 8 angles like a compass rose, and you're going to try to dominate those 8 angles of an offensive lineman, whether it's north, south, east, west, or northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. And really in my indie drills, you're going to be in those positions. So we're just going to work on the first step here off the med ball and really drive and catch off of that shoe. All right. Then we're going to go with the other foot. So we're going to drive off that. All right. Really drive off this left shoe now and catch with our left foot. Okay. So we're going to really drive and catch that shoe. Okay. And really try not to get our hips too far forward and really keep it, all right, with our hips closed. So we're just really working on the drive catch phase off the inside ball of the foot and catching with my other side of my foot as a right foot lead and a left foot lead. So we're going to go through that, and really my coaching cues are really driving off the inside ball of the foot, all right, and catching my body under control, trying not to swing my foot. I think a lot of high school kids will try to swing and get their foot way up in the air too much. All right. And we really want to drive and catch the phase of that foot from the ground up. Okay. So really just drive and catch and work on that footwork on the med ball. All right. Again, really focused on keeping their hips closed and the inside ball of the foot. All right. Working on those first 2 steps to contact. So we're just going to work that right foot, left foot. All right, on the approach. All right, the next phase is we're going to work on the first 2 steps to contact. All right, so if you're an inside zone team or a stretch team, you may work this angle a little bit more that Walker's doing. All right. If you're more of a gap double team, you may work more of the north direction. All right. Like Lonnie here is doing. We do both. All right. We run a lot of duo schemes at Douglass, which is inside zone scheme, just as gap orientated. All right. And we're going to run a lot of counter and power. So we do a lot of gap scheme stuff and incorporate the duo stuff with no pullers. It's been good for us in the run game with counter tray. So we'll work all these angles, first 2 steps of contact. All right. Again, it's the same principle, except now in the second step, I want to make sure I get my elbows tight to the body. All right. And really work on those dominant angles and get that second step down. And I'm going to shoot my hands on contact. All right. And then we'll just go the other way. So like Walker's working a straight north direction here. Okay. Really working on drive catch phase with that right foot, left foot. All right. Really getting those elbows tight and working it on air. So we'll go through this first 2 steps of contact. All right. Really good, quick feet, really harp on speed. All right. Getting those first 2 steps down to contact, because I think that's really important that your kids understand the speed and the angle and leverage of that kinetic chain. So right here, all right, I really like his knee bend right here. This is Jager. He just signed with the University of Kentucky. So again, yes, I'm blessed with pretty good players. All right, he just now finished with me, all right, just a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be an early graduate over at Kentucky, but he's going to have an elbow tight here, and I got really good feet. All right, really drive catch phase up through the top of the shoe. All right, really driving through the inside ball of the foot. So we're just going to progress, all right, and go through my lines on the med ball with our first 2 steps to contact. Elbows are tight on contact. All right, ready to work and ready to go. So these first 2 steps are going to be really important. So we'll go through this, and this is stuff that I do in February in a normal year, obviously without COVID. And this will be stuff that I do. I did it a couple weeks ago before we played in the state semifinals. Okay. So we're going to go first 2 steps to contact in that run block progression. All right. And then we're just going to incorporate the movement with it. Okay. So we're just going to get a good duck walk forward on air. First 2 steps, short choppy steps. Knee's going to be inside the ankle bone. A lot of O-line coaches may talk about Z in the knee. So I talk about that a little bit and really working on keeping your hips closed. I really like Ian right here. He's at Center College, which is a good D3 school. All right. He's been there for a year. This is my center 2 years ago, but he's really got really good movement. All right. And he's got good ankle mobility here where he can move some guys off the ball. He's got his knee inside the ankle. Elbows are tight where he can strike and move his guy off the line of scrimmage. So we're just going to incorporate the first 2 steps to contact, and we're going to incorporate the movement skills with it, and then we'll go the other knee. Okay, so we'll just work that angle of the other knee, elbows tight. All right, really envisioning a guy on top of me. All right, really driving through. So we'll incorporate that, build that. That's going to take some time. All right. Another drill we do in the off season is a med ball throw. All right, where we're, again, you're going to be forced. I know we're not doing this in a game. I get that. But I'd like to see Lonnie's elbows, all right, a little bit tighter. Like to see a little bit better knee bend, okay? And my elbows need to be tight, okay? And we're going to explode them up through the hips. I really like Jager here. He's got good knee bend, all right? And we're just going to work on a right foot, left foot lead and explode the hips on contact, simulating that drive up through the defender, okay? And I'll show you the bags here in just a minute. So my elbows are tight. Okay, and really drive catch and phase. So we'll go right foot lead, left foot lead. All right, and really concentrate on driving through the shoe. Same thing going back. So we'll go right foot, left foot. Okay, so this is a left foot lead. All right, really exploding through. I like to see his elbows come a little bit through on the body, just a little bit quicker, but you can kind of get the gist of the drill. All right, where I'm going to explode up through contact on the inside ball of the foot. Okay, so we'll incorporate that drill in the off season. So we'll go through that, just working on the hip explosion, elbows tight, working on the first 2 steps, the contact, work on the approach, working on the fit. Okay, after we go through that, All right, we will put the bags in front of them, which I use some X bags from Charles Bentley. So we'll work on that. All right, and we will go first 2 steps to contact. We'll go right foot, left foot. Okay, I really like his elbows right here. All right, he's got a little bit too much weight for me on his toes. All right, I don't like to see that much space underneath the heels. I would rather the weight be on the inside ball of the foot. All right, but his hips are closed. All right, they're in pretty good position. I just would like to see not as much weight up on the toe. His elbows are pretty tight. I love his hands right here. In my opinion, those are pretty good because we want to try to lift the defender up. All right, and try to get that, what we call the P, all right, TP phase, pressure to pressure. All right, and I know, O-line performance talks a lot about that, and it's true. If you have 60 plays in a game, you're going to have 60 PTPs. You're going to have 60 pressure to pressures. Defense is going to be fighting against you as you come off the ball, whether they're slanting inside, outside, or playing you head up. You're going to go through a lot of those PTP phases. So in your indie drills, you got to place your players in those positions of those PTPs, all right, of that pressure to pressure phase. So my elbows are going to be tight. We're just going to work the first 2 steps to contact, right foot, left foot, and really working on the fit. Okay, so like right here, that's way too slow. Okay, so I'd rather see speed, elbows, all right, and collision. So crowd his space. All right, but really just working on that drive catch phase. All right, that's not bad there by Dalen. He just graduated with me at right tackle. He's a 2-year starter, big kid that was pretty athletic for his size. All right, he's not going to go play college football anywhere. He's just going to go to college and be a student, but pretty good high school player. All right, and elbows are going to be tight. All right, really like those first 2 steps to contact that he has. All right, after we go through those first 2 steps to contact, just working on that fit phase, we're going to add the movement to it. Okay, and again, remember, I'm talking a lot about run block progression here, run block progression. So we're going to go those first 2 steps to contact. All right, going through that, really working on that drive catch phase. Elbows are tight. Okay, and then we're going to incorporate, like I said, some movement to it. Okay, so right here, we'll go left foot, first 2 steps of contact, and then we're just going to incorporate the movement skills to it. And we're just going to work a basic drive block here in our winter drills. Okay, really like the feet right here. The knees are inside the ankle bone. All right, you got a lot of good athleticism right here. Elbows are tight. Okay, I like to see, again, just tight to the body where I can work on that PTP, which is pretty good here. Really like his knee bend. Again, I would like to see the foot more inside out, not so much on his toes. So that's what I would tell him, and I did. All right, knee is inside the ankle. I'd like to see this knee inside the ankle, keep these hips closed to where I can drive through that phase. Okay, so I'm just working on the drive catch and the movement skills all the way up through the bag. Okay, and we're just giving him a little bit of pressure so he can feel it. All right, working on this PTP. All right, I like to see my weight on the inside ball of the foot. It's not too bad, just a little bit quicker. All right, really working on that, again, that pressure to pressure phase, tight elbows, keeping that engagement of the hands. So we're just going to work on those first 2 steps of contact with the movement. Elbows are going to be tight. Again, the coaching cues here, make sure my weight is evenly distributed in my stance. I have the weight in the hip. I like to see his heel down a little bit, turn that toe out to keep the hips closed, really driving off the inside ball of the foot. So I got good elbow flexion as I'm running up through this X back. Okay, I think that's important as you're moving forward, all right, on this drill that you're working on the PTP phase. All right, so right foot lead, left foot lead, okay, going both ways. And you can incorporate pulls with this, skip pulls, counter trades. It all correlates into what you're doing. All right, really working on that first 2 steps. Ian kind of leans here at the beginning, then he kind of corrects himself, working on that PTP phase where I got my elbows tight. All right, and I'm really punching up through that bag. So we'll work on these skills. All right, there's Jager there. He's got really good feet. That's why he's going to play in the SEC. All right, but you can see here that he's really working on that drive catch phase. All right, and really got good feet fire on the approach and then the finish. Obviously, it's hard to finish without pads on, but I really like his elbows right here. Really got feet fire. He's really driving on the inside ball of the foot. All right, and I really like how he's got fire off the line of scrimmage. Really, really nice. All right, really like his feet drive off of that with the fit and the finish phase of the run block progression. So we're going to go through all that: right foot, left foot, first 2 steps of contact, working the fit. All right, and then we're going to work on that, all right, with the run block progression. So that's just a little bit about, and I didn't go into a lot of the past concepts, but I went into a lot of the run block progression phase, kind of what we do as an offensive line. That is my indie periods. All right. So when we go outside in July and August and September, I'll go through a lot of that. I actually do use the med balls. We'll do a little bit of shoot work, T-board work. All right. But a lot of our phases that we're working on is that run block progression. All right. And then another time, if you want to reach out, or we can talk about pass pro and some things that we do there as well, because we're a balanced football team at Douglass. We're a spread RPO team. All right, but we will drop back and throw it. We're pretty even this year, 50-50 on run pass. I didn't get into a lot of the pass pro stuff, but if there's anything that you would need on pass pro, run block progression, or anything that you would like to talk with about our program, this is my contact information. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. And our doors are always open at Douglass. I'm always willing to learn from very successful coaches in this business that want to continue getting better. During this pandemic, I got really close with 7 guys that are head coaches in other states. All right. So there's a lot of positives that have come out of this pandemic, even though everybody wants to think, and obviously we've all been through a lot of negative things. Some coaches haven't got the experience of football season, and that's terrible. In Kentucky, we got to experience it and go through the playoffs, even though we had some cancellations. All right. So there is a lot of positives that we can do as coaches in this profession. And I know that we're all in it for the right reasons. And again, if we can do anything for you at Douglass, please reach out and let me know. And thank you for having me tonight.